Content creator introspection. If you look up introspection formally, you get a psychological term about looking inside your... Let's see here. Let's actually look at it here from the Google results. Introspection is the examination of one's own conscious thoughts and feelings. In psychology, the process of introspection relies exclusively on observation of one's mental state, while in a spiritual context, it may refer to the examination of one's soul. Look it up in thesaurus: brooding, self-analysis, soul-searching, heart-searching, introversion. So, I'm not even getting fancy with any of these formal definitions here. The idea of content creator introspection is quite simply about watching your own stuff. Watching... Ugh. Hi, italics. We don't want that. Must be left over from earlier. Am I bolding things? Whoops, made a new slide. Made a whole new PowerPoint, too. That, see here? FASD? No. Am I bold-faced or not? There, now I'm not. Content creator introspection, we're talking about the simple act of just soul searching. You know, keeping an eye on what it is that you're doing, and in my case, a lot, watching yourself as a member of the audience to get the audience's point of view. Now, there are a couple of reasons why you're going to want to do this. Number one, there are mistakes, screw-ups, and mannerisms that you will never know that you're doing until you watch or listen to yourself afterward. Now, there are some very notable flubs that I've done on the radio and other stuff that I did not catch until I listened to the tape afterwards. So, you know, some people say, oh, if you watch your own stuff, you're narcissistic. No, it means you're capable of putting yourself in the audience's shoes. And an example of this prior to anything multimedia related would be if you were ever introduced to what's called the writing process in your grade school English classes or whatnot. I mean, when I was little, I couldn't even figure this out. I was like, why would you want to do that? So when I was in grade school and my teacher was trying to introduce me to the idea of the writing process, I never understood the difference between revision and proofreading. I was like, well, don't you want to look over your stuff to make sure? You know, don't you want to look over your stuff to make sure that it's right as soon as you can? I never understood the step 3, which was to let it sit for a while, so you would look on it with fresh eyes. If I remember right, we're going way back, so I could be old and forgetting things here. But revision was about if you wanted to change what you said, you would do it during the revision phase. And proofreading, if you spelling, grammar, things like that, you would do in the proofreading phase, but you would not change what it is that you said. So I struggled with that for years. I was like, why would I want to get my homework done. Why would I write a paper for school and let it sit somewhere for a while to look at it with fresh eyes? Can't I just proofread the living daylights out of it and then give it to the teacher? Well, there is something to be said for taking some time and then watching yourself as a member of the audience, so that way you're not biased by a fresh memory of broadcasting things. So, content creator introspection is awesome because it lets you catch stuff that you're never going to see otherwise. There have been times, like a classic example more recently on the show, when I flubbed the whole thing with Instagram. I said Instagram was a site focused on video, when I meant it was a site focused on photos. Now, anybody out there that knows anything about Instagram will know that it is primarily a photo site. Maybe they have a video feature, I don't know. I'm not a big Instagram guy. I basically have a token account that I almost never use. My Instagram account exists to sign into Instagram. That's it. A lot of what holds me back on Instagram is the emphasis on mobile. If I could put like video game screenshots in Instagram, like those ESO screenshots that I doctor up on Twitter, I absolutely would do so. But I haven't used a photo site on a regular basis since PhotoBucket way back in the day. So I don't even think it's still around anymore. Yeah, we're going back for that one. But that's the thing. There are a few things you can do to make yourself better as a content creator than to watch your own stuff as a member of the audience. Because remember, we're talking about empathy here. We're talking about relating to other human beings. And why wouldn't you want to relate to the people in your audience? I use formal business terms like demographics and stuff, But fundamentally, what I'm talking about is people. And one of the ways to do this kind of stuff, one of the ways to identify with people is to get their point of views on things. It's like in sports. If you've ever seen the movies, or maybe you had this happen on a real sports team with your coach when you're going over the video. And the coach will sit there, usually the movies will make this look very dramatic, with like they're in a dark room and there's this thing blinking in their eye or something, because they're just sitting there like, in front of footage of a basketball game or a hockey game or something like that. In particular, I'm familiar with the movie Miracle, about the 1980 Miracle on Ice. Disney movie, actually, circa 2004. I have the Blu-ray for it. But what those coaches are doing when they go over that video and then they bring in a member of the team to say, look, you're doing this, you're doing that, is content creator introspection, the sports version. There are some things that you're not going to catch in the heat of the moment. Same thing with sports teams. There are things you're never going to know when you're playing the sports game. Even if the coach is looking at what you're doing, they may miss stuff. But when you watch the video after the fact, you see, oh, our team always does this and it always screws up. You know, I remember it was an episode of Coach a long time ago, and they had something similar to this, where they started watching the replays and noticed that anytime the safety on the opposing football team stuck his butt in the air, they were going to blitz. So it's little things like that that fundamentally can make the difference when it comes to content creation. But if you catch your own mistakes, you're actually doing your audience a service by trying to create a better video, stream, or what have you. Because I love this music. Ease Jammy Jams, that's why. I should make this nothing but Ease Jammy Jam stuff. Hold on a second. I'm deleting the playlist. I'm going to actually add by file and see if I can control click all the Ease Jammy Jams tunes, except for the holiday ones. We're going to play nothing but that for a while. There's no holiday in here, right? Okay. Yeah, we're bringing in the Ease Jammy Jams. Matter of fact, do contributing artists. Just changing my playlist here. Okay, we're gonna rotate between a bunch of Ease Jammy Jams, which is jazz from the YouTube audio library. Why is there less of them now? Hold on. Gotta go off of the file names, because not all of them have metadata. There we go. Zing! Hope it doesn't get too repetitive, but it is on random and loop. So, what you're looking to do here with this introspection is watch your own content, because you're going to catch stuff you have no chance of knowing unless you're watching or listening to yourself afterwards. Now, when you find ways to improve on your own, you do your audience a favor, because they don't have to tell you. Because they don't have to tell you. Which can create anywhere from an awkward to an antagonistic situation. Now, there's a parallel to this in business. When you're making something or providing a product or service, internal failures versus external failures. There are some very notable instances of this in business history where a company knew something was wrong with a product internally before they released it, but some genius decided, oh, it's going to cost too much to fix it, let's release it. Well, the general public isn't stupid, and people found out about the problem with the product and service. Raised a big stink about it. Now you have media issues. You have the way the press handles everything. You have publicity problems. You have all the costs of fixing the issue if you want to fix it at all, versus fines, whatever, from the government or whatever, if it's a safety issue, stuff along those lines, and damage to the brand. One of the miracle stories I heard about in business school was that time when someone poisoned, I think it was Tylenol or something. Some jackass went around poisoning a ton of stuff, and it's why we have safety caps on medications nowadays. But the company that found out that this was going on spent the money on recalling everything, putting the safety caps on, making sure the stuff wasn't poisoned, and then sending it back out to everywhere that sold it. And it saved the brand. So, in many cases, it's easier to deal with something you catch on your own in business than it is to let the general public do your job for you and find out and hold and call you out on it. Because once you're dealing with people, you're dealing with people that may never buy your stuff again, even if you fix it. People don't always do what makes sense. So, when it comes to content creation and the reason why you should be your own worst critic, the more stuff that you can take care of yourself, the less people have to speak up about. So, to apply this specifically, where are we here? To apply this specifically here, internal versus external, to get this out of the generic business textbook type stuff, the more you find out you have to improve on your own, the less people have to tell you. Which we talked about in the main part of the bullet point here, but here's the thing. When you're very good at this, number one, it avoids, we said, the awkward, anywhere from an awkward to an antagonistic situation, but fundamentally, it helps with filtering. If you can be your own worst critic and improve things on your own, not only is it faster because you spot stuff and fix it yourself instead of however long it takes for people to tell you, but it also can help in weeding out trolling. Yeah, it helps with weeding out trolling. Because when you have somebody that's just trying to mess with you or something like that, they're not going to give you good feedback. They're not going to give you good feedback. They just want to get a reaction out of you. And in some cases, you may say you're trying to improve something and they will just call you out on it again anyways. But what happens is, what you're looking to do with content creator introspection is fix so much stuff on your own that there are only two options when somebody says you need to work on something. It's either constructive criticism or trolling. But in all cases, it's got to be something you may not be looking at. And in some cases with trolling, it is stuff that you're looking at. So the idea here is you fix so much stuff on your own that the majority of what you do here is just people messing with you. And maybe once in a while, somebody will catch something that you missed, you thank them for it, and you do that. But the problem is that, especially on YouTube, the evergreen nature of the platform means there's more of a motive for people to mess with you. PewDiePie actually did some experiments with this. One of the things I very vividly remember PewDiePie getting talked about for in years gone by is when he completely shut down his comments and took all his comments on Twitter. One of the net effects I remember from that is that people had to put in more of an effort to comment on his videos, which means less people trolled him because he wasn't such an easy mark, so to speak, compared to other people they could just mess with directly in the comments. The minute you had to put effort into messing with PewDiePie, people didn't want to follow through on it. They went and sought out other people to bother. So, if you send a message that you care about what you're doing enough to constantly put yourself under the microscope, it leaves little room for anything other than people messing with you. Now let's make sure we put on there, constructive criticism still exists, but you'll be able to take care of most of what you otherwise would hear directly, or should I say faster, because you catch it on your own. And this is something I've had to think about a lot. Many people say I beat myself up over what it is that I do. I'm way too critical of myself. I'm my own worst enemy. And I think that actually has helped a lot with being a nutty perfectionist and being good at what it is that I do, because people don't have to tell me stuff. I'll catch stuff and many times they're like, yeah, man, yeah, you screwed this up. I'm like, yeah, I already know. I already want to do something better for that. I'm trying to come up with a plan to do things better. as opposed to the people out there that don't take responsibility for what they do, that maybe they think they never do anything wrong, and so you go after them for anything, and they're constantly fighting with you and second guessing you, talking you down, blah blah blah. You can't tell them anything. So it puts you a step ahead in the game with this kind of stuff. And the fundamental effect of all of this is people don't have to tell you stuff and you get better. Net effect, you get better in many cases without people actually having to tell you stuff. Also, from an empathy perspective, you're connecting with your audience by putting yourself in your audience's shoes, particularly if the content is from a while ago and you're not as biased by having created or broadcasted it recently. And that's really what's missing here. This is why with the Ashley situation, I keep mentioning the E word. Because there's people out there, it's easy to tear people down. It takes a lot more effort to build people up. And the same thing too with the content creator introspection as well. It's a way of connecting with your audience by being part of your audience. This also means too, what this also means in terms of content creator introspection is that you're thinking about how you do stuff when you watch or listen to others. So you watch other streams on Twitch, other YouTubers, and this is all part of the balance between creating content and consuming content. Let's see here. The important part here is be a creator, but never stop being a consumer, because fundamentally, if you're humble, you'll realize you're not always going to have the best ideas. So never give up on inspiration. That's it. And this is a very humbling thing. Some people have big egos. They can't stand when somebody else does something better than them, but it's the truth it's the truth of things. You're always looking for inspiration. I can tell you, I mean, there was an argument about this on YouTube back in the day with the whole rip-offs thing. People are like, oh, irate gamers ripping off the AVGN. I'm like, if the irate gamer took any inspiration from the AVGN, that's a good thing, as opposed to having to reinvent the wheel. It is good, though, to give people credit. Even in academia, where you can risk flunking out of school if you take someone else's ideas and present them as your own, plagiarism. That's why things like the MLA handbook exist. Even in an academic environment, though, the big thing that the whole citing your sources thing addresses in preventing plagiarism is the idea that other people are going to have good ideas. You can take inspiration from them, but you want to give other people credit. You don't want to pass them off as your own, because that's pretty slimy to do. And then one of the reasons, too, if you talk about this in college, you're like, wow, that seems pretty big. Why would you kick me out of school because I forgot to cite something? Because when dealing with academic types like professors, ideas are basically, you think trade secrets are big in the corporate world, in the educational world, in the academic world, ideas are gold. So it's basically where people that are trying to think up new innovative ideas, it's their bread and butter. So it is kind of like stealing stuff if you take one of their ideas and don't give them credit. So you'll hear about that you hear about that all over the place in college. The MLA handbook, that's still a thing, right? Let me actually look that up. There's probably a new revision of it versus when I was in school. But that's still a thing, right? As I remember, that was absolutely mandatory. You would risk getting expelled if you ever were, because the 8th edition. Okay, so I can't remember what my edition of it was. I might still have it on my shelf. So I might still have this is the 8th edition from 2016. I gotta see what mine was. Yeah, I'm looking at the MLA handbook, Modern Language Association, MLA.org. We can switch over to the browser for this one. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Academia in a nutshell. The MLA Handbook's flexible yet consistent citation style ultimately praises a visionary approach, simple and clear enough for a high school student to use, but detailed enough for scholarly writing. Takes a fresh look at documenting sources in the 8th edition of the MLA Handbook. That's probably a Twitter picture waiting to happen, although I'm probably going to date myself by doing that. I think I have the MLA Handbook somewhere on one of my shelves still. Yeah, so this is basically the how to cite your sources book that was big when I was in college. So, yeah. So, getting back to the PowerPoint here. Inspiration is a cool thing. I mean, it's also an acknowledgement of the people around you and the fact that we're all kind of interconnected together, you know? We're all in this together. So you want to do the right thing. You want to be civil towards people. You want to try and be as nice as you can to people. And you want to put in the effort to build people up instead of tear people down. Because the problem with tearing people down and being a big contrarian and stuff is that it's going to have consequences. I mean, the shot across my bow, so to speak, that's kind of naval warfare terms here, but the warning shot, so to speak, for me was when I found out about contrarian radio personalities that are concealed carry folks, because they make so many people mad that they carry a gun with them everywhere they go because they're worried about someone else having a gun and them not having a gun. So they're concealed carry. They're always armed whenever they're not in the studio because their career has been built off of making people mad so much that they're constantly concerned about somebody coming after them. So I decided I didn't want to be like that. And so with the situation when it came to Ashney and the rest of them, in the situation with Ashney, it has affected, the way I've responded to the situation with her. But the whole thing with content creator introspection is it's an act of empathy. You're putting yourself in your audience's shoes by watching your own stuff. See here? And quite frankly, if you're talking about relating with other people, walking a mile in their shoes by doing this, so to speak, is a great way to do that. One of these days, I will get this slide right. See, the way things work with this is that... There we go. The way this works is I'm trying to make it so you don't see the window UI, but you see the PowerPoint slide, so I want it to look pretty nice. One of these days, I'll get it right. This is an improvement from when I would lose the bottom right of the slide with the portrait and the music player. But anyways, the Ease Jammy Jams one that I like the most is Whispering Stream. Let's play that and let's crank everything up. It's not all jazz from this guy. Some of you will recognize this as the intro from the relaxing gameplay streams that I do. Alright. We'll leave that at 10%, a little louder than usual, but it is a softer than normal track. So there you go. Content creator introspection. Now let me tell you how do I apply this. For anybody that wants to... What is this, grammar? More concise language would be clearer for your reader. Okay. Okay, dude. So, anyways. Here's how I apply this with what it is that I do. Might as well just say it. If anybody else wants to try this, they're more than welcome to. When editing a video together... So, when editing together a video, I'm going to watch it, of course, before I crunch the video in the video editor. But when it goes to YouTube, I'll probably watch it again, just to make sure the YouTube compressors or the YouTube transcoders and whatever, the YouTube encoders didn't screw it up. But it's also a great way to catch stuff after the fact that I might have missed throughout the entire editing process. And there are times, too, when I'll just go back and watch my own stuff. On Twitch, it involves listening to my highlights and also going around with the highlighter and listening to what I said, in order to make the highlights eventually go to YouTube. So, what this is all about, though, is caring about what it is that I'm doing and making it better. All of this. And at the center of all of this is caring about the audience. Caring about the fans. Caring about the people that are supposed to benefit from what it is that I'm doing here. That's what drives me to sometimes be a little on the slow side when making stuff, but when it finally comes out, it's good. When you run into somebody who will never take a good hard look at themselves and what they're doing, or better yet, they fight you verbally or whatever when you bring this up. When you run into somebody like that, you start to appreciate the people that do this, because these are the people that care about you as a viewer. Now, there are some people out there that aren't as good at this, where you have to tell them that they can improve this, they can improve that. And that always has, of course, the dice roll effect. What if somebody's in a bad mood? What if somebody's been worked up by something? What if they take your feedback the wrong way? That's the question you always have to ask yourself. So, if you can eliminate that by finding stuff on your own, it is less that people have to take that risk over. Same thing, too, with the whole thing where someone's not good with feedback and it effectively chills feedback. So, other content creators get better than they do because of this little problem that the creator has with this sort of thing. If they're having problems listening to others, the best thing that they can do is to find stuff on their own. Much like in the world of business, if you're making something, you want to quality check it and stuff like that. You're better off finding stuff internally than sending it out and having all those extra problems from people doing what you could have done on your own. It is absolutely something to look for. It is absolutely something to look out for. So, this is the slide I'm going to leave everyone with here. Not too long of a discussion tonight. We didn't even make it to the hour mark. But I think given what's going on right now, this is probably the only thing really worth talking about. I looked on Twitter, Ninja said something that made me want to talk about it. Things like that. I'm also looking at Facebook gaming. I'm trying to get some real world information on Facebook gaming and not just what I can infer from Facebook talking about their program. So I'm looking for some real world experience with Facebook streamers at this point, particularly streamers who are not in the Level Up program, because I'm taking a very, very close look at the whole thing that Facebook's doing, trying to come up with a discussion for that. I think the main rivalry is between YouTube and Twitch when it comes to content creation platforms right now. And red versus purple is worth keeping an eye on, but I'm actually curious as to what Facebook is up to and how successful they're going to be given the limitations of their social media platform and how dated something like Facebook is compared to something like YouTube. Everybody forgets Facebook kind of sort of stole the crown from MySpace. And if you look at what MySpace was versus what something like YouTube and Twitch are today, there are some things that could hold Facebook back. But we'll save that discussion for when I get around to talking about that. Tonight, though, I hope my message has been nice and clear. Content creator introspection, don't be afraid of it, because one of the best things you can do for your audience is understand where they're coming from because you've experienced it yourself. It's like the whole thing about walking a mile in someone else's shoes, except you don't have to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You just have to put yourself in the seats at the theater, so to speak, and see what it is you're doing. Technology makes this so useful today. Let's not forget, once upon a time, we're pretty much done with the music at this point. Once upon a time, in the world of media creation and whatnot, with analog stuff and cassettes and VHS and stuff like that, watching stuff after the fact was always lower quality, and there might be some presentation issues with watching yourself after the fact. And if you've ever tried to edit with 2 VCRs, how clunky that was a nightmare. But today, 1080-60, watch it after the fact, have it be the same quality as it was on your computer screen. What we have today is so amazing. It's astounding that more people aren't thinking about looking at their own stuff to see how they can do better and being their own worst critic. So people can call me a turbulent creator or my own worst critic or a nutty perfectionist all they want. I actually think for my audience's sake, it's probably one of the best things I can do for them, because, and even the fans as well, they like what I do, but they don't want to have to be that guy that has to tell me the hard truth about something I could do better. It would be much better if they didn't have to bother with that because I caught it on my own and fixed it. So, in any event, short discussion tonight, but very to the point and very important. I think out of all the discussions I could possibly send to YouTube, a discussion about content creator introspection is probably one of the best things I could send over there. It's a very useful tool to have, and quite frankly, it keeps you humble when you're like, look, I can make mistakes, so I'm going to watch my own stuff, See how many of my mistakes I can point out and deal with on my own so other people don't have to. It's just part of being human and part of being understanding and part of being a decent human being to your fellow man, as the preachers would say. Social media is youtube.com/MultimediaJay, twitter.com/MultimediaJay, twitch.tv/MultimediaJay, and multimediajay.wordpress.com. Tonight's raid is going to be, is Yugi still going? No, she isn't. Right then, Joanne Tech Lover, it is. Playing Stardew Valley, very relaxing and chill. Just try to ignore any clicky-click stuff because she still has that microphone situation to work out, but that's a completely different discussion. Till next time, this is Multimedia Jay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.
257. Multimedia J Radio Style.